One of the things you studied extensively was ancient
Yeah.
civilizations, and you were able to find out exactly how old humans are, right?
Yes.
So is what they teach us in school correct?
What they teach you in school is correct to a degree. They say that Homo sapiens sapien arrived around 200,000 years ago.
Mhm.
Now, that's pretty accurate. What they try to tell you, though, that's wrong is that all life comes from one person.
Mm.
Like the entire population of 8 billion people on this planet came out of one area, which started with one Homo sapien, or one hominid, I should say, that they discovered. That's actually false,
Mm.
super false. When you look at these ancient texts and tablets, you discover that there had been people here long before the 200,000 year mark of Homo sapiens sapien. However, we didn't call them that. They're known as just hominids. They probably are our cousins.
Mm.
Their bodies have been found all over the planet. What's interesting about these beings is that they had larger bones, larger jaw bones, larger brain capacity because their skulls were larger, not from cranial, deformation, but actually because they had the way they were born and developed. They had larger cranial. Also, they only had one parietal plate when we have two.
Mm.
And so they were here already. Now, when these other beings arrived on the planet, they call them the Anunnaki. So that's what they call them. It's in the Enuma Elish, it's in the Atrahasis epic, and many other ancient texts. Other in the Bible, they call them the Anak. In Australia, they call them the Anak, Ananu. I'm sorry. And so, all over the world, they're known that these beings existed. The Dogon called them the Nomo. So, no matter where you go on the planet, you're going to find that these people were here, and they
Mm.
all say the same thing. These people came down from heaven to earth. The Egyptians say in the time of Zep Tepi, they turned mud into a kingdom,
Mm.
and that they came and arrived here and they began to develop this as a breakaway civilization for themselves. Oh,
Right.
it popped out. Hold on. Yeah. As a breakaway civilization for themselves. And so basically, they then came to a point after working for about 250,000 years on their own on this planet, alongside of us already existing. Our cousins were here about 200,000 years ago, as the time that they began to go to war against each other.
Mm.
These elite people, these advanced beings, I call them.
What caused the war?
The war was they didn't want to work anymore. So there's a group of beings in the ancient text called the Igigi.
Mhm.
And the Igigi were the working class version of the Anunnaki. But they weren't supposed to be slaves, but they were being treated like they were slaves.
Mm.
They got tired of this war, of this work, and decided to go to war. So they actually left and they all got together and they said, we're going to, they made a plan. We're going to have a coup. We're going to go against the god of earth, Anu,
Mhm.
and his two sons, Enki and Enlil. And then there's this whole thing in the Epic of Atrahasis where they encircle this place that they had down in Adam's calendar, which is located in Africa, in South Africa. They found this place. It's there, and the actual gold mines where the human beings were working is there.
Wow.
And it dates back 200,000 years. And this war was going to happen 200,000 years ago, and according to the tablets. And so what happens is Enki says, you know what, I have an idea. Let's not go to war. There's an existing being on this planet. We can actually modify it and add our essence to it and get it to do the work for us.
Mm.
So that is when the genetic modification comes in.
Mm.
So you see, we go from 48 chromosomes to 46 chromosomes. We lose 2 chromosomes
Mhm.
because chromosome, are fused. They fuse them together and then they put telomere caps on them, which shorten our lifespan.
Mm.
Also, we have junk DNA, which I believe is not junk. I believe in some way, in some fashion, they disconnected some of our DNA.
Mm.
Because I believe, unlike mainstream beliefs, I believe that our ancestors, our cousins, were smarter than us spiritually, consciously, and probably even more in tune with the earth.
Mm.
They can probably navigate using their magnetite crystals in their brains to navigate the Earth's magnetic field. No need for GPS.
Hmm.
We still have magnetite crystals, billions of them in our brain. We don't even sense that they're there.
Mm.
We can't sense the Earth's magnetic field right now, but they could. So all these things point to the fact that in some way they genetically modified our cousins to create Homo sapiens sapien, and there's other tablets that back that up.
Mm.
There's even one tablet where one of the Anunnaki women said, we were failing at cloning these beings because they can't reproduce on their own.
Mm.
So she decided to make a zygote, which is a modern technological term, where she actually took the egg out of one of the hominids, put some of the genetic material of her in the egg, and put it in her own womb, and took it to term for 10 months, and then she gives birth to the Adamu, which means first man.
Mm.
And there's a famous cylinder scroll of her holding this Adamu, first man, up in the British Museum in England. So it's pretty interesting that we have a lot of records of this happening, and all the tablets point to the same established time period of about 200,000 years for Homo sapiens sapien, but they won't acknowledge it as potential real history,
Right.
only as mythology.
So that concept of evolution, that we came from the water, is just BS.
I don't believe the water. I believe in microevolution, right? Like I moved from Florida to Alaska, and over time I can acclimate to that temperature.
Right.
Right? My body will adjust, things like that. But for me to go and say that, we came out of the water and we started as an amoeba, a single cell organism, and then somehow we grew legs and then we swam around the ocean and we came out. And I don't believe in that macro. I think that life is designed and formulated. There was one scientist that took a flask and he cleaned it out with extreme heat, and then he sealed it, vacuum sealed it. Then he came back a few days later and he analyzed what was inside that sealed, vacuumed flask. Guess what? He discovered microscopic living organisms in that flask, fully formed. Where did they come from? See, so life in my concept of life is it's emanating into existence all the time. That's why you'll never discover how many life forms exist. I think that the flower of life pattern is the actual symbol of life, and it's a womb that life emanates through. And it's every Planck unit of space-time all around us, and life is always coming out, already fully designed, fully formed into existence nonstop.
Wow. So you mentioned humans were genetically modified. Does that mean we used to live longer?
Oh yeah, we used to live a lot longer. If you look into ancient texts and tablets, you'll find over 1,000 years, 2,000 years.
Humans?
Humans.
Whoa.
Yes. And even in the biblical text, they talk about extremely long lifespans.
Yeah.
But then what happens is in the ancient tablets, there's this Tower of Babel incident. And it's also copied into the Bible because these texts were copied into the biblical text. The Bible was written from 100 AD to 900 AD, right? But these ancient tablets go back 10, 15, 20, 30, 40,000 years. Comes first, the chicken or the egg? They copied it from there. But in the ancient tablets, the humans are building this tower into the heavens, and they're going to put a Shem on top, which translates into, believe it or not, rocket. And so they were copying something that they'd seen these Anunnaki beings build. The Anunnaki beings had something called a Duran Key, a bond heaven earth. There was this tower that they had built into the heavens. And so they were copying this. And Lil, also known as Yahweh in the modern day Bible, he comes back and sees humans building this. He says, whatever they set their hearts to do, they will achieve it. And he's like, holy crap, I got to stop these people. They're getting too smart. So he destroys the tower, right? And then he confuses their language, makes people start speaking different languages, and spreads humans out around the world in different regions so we couldn't communicate. And then he also did something else. He said, their lives shall be, he said, they shall not live forever. From this point forward, their lives shall be no more than 120.
Right.
The maximum lifespan of a human being, according to modern science, is 120 years. That's if we had pristine conditions and good food.
Right.
So now, again, ancient tablets match what they're saying at Harvard University. What he also did at that moment is he shortened our telomeres. So how did we get to 120 years? Well, when you shorten the telomeres, all of a sudden you find out that the maximum lifespan is 120. If you take off that shortened telomere, all of a sudden you can live longer than 120 years.
Right.
So in Harvard University, a scientist said, let me check this out. So they started experimenting with mice. And they started experimenting and like stopping the degradation of their telomeres, and they got mice to live 3 times their normal lifespan. Dang. So if they can do that to mice, they can already do it to us.
Would you do it?
Absolutely. And I'd definitely do it in a heartbeat. I'd extend my telomeres right now so I can get a chance to see how this world pans out, where it turns, how it shifts, how we get back to the golden age,
Yeah.
But that's exactly what's going on. They understand now that the ancient texts and tablets were correct, but they won't tell us that.
Wow.
Wherever you guys are watching this show, I would truly appreciate it if you follow or subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm. It helps us get bigger and better guests, and it helps us grow the team. Truly means a lot. Thank you guys for supporting, and here's the episode.